Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin Daf Lamed Aleph. We're going to start at the new Mishnah in the middle of Lamed Aleph Lamed Aleph. Says the Masnis, Hameniach Peros Lios Mafra Shalehen Truma Umaistros. A person who sets aside fruits and he is leaving them there, as Rashi says, Saimach al Elu, near these other ones, Va'oichel Tvala Macherim, and is eating other food, she'eshlo. V'yomer hari trumasan ba'oisen perois she'kitzeisi l'kach v'chein oisa tamid. So instead of him taking directly, but he has other fruits, he says, those fruits are going to be the trumas and meisters, and now I'm going to be able to eat this food, and therefore it's no longer going to be an issue of tevel. Or for that matter, person says the same stipulation by mois, lios mafresh lehen meiser sheni. A person does this regarding money in order to be able to, again, if the food is too heavy to bring to Yerushalayim to eat on years 1, 2, 4, and 5, so then you could be paid it onto money. So you could also do that for money somewhere else. So the din is, and din, it's clear, ma'afar shalayin b'chescha shein kayamin. You don't have to worry about, are these fruits here, is the money still around, which is, again, a direct connection to what we've been discussing. Do we assume that the husband is sending a shliach, so is the husband still alive? So yeah, we have a cheskes kayim. So it's also when it comes to fruits. He can assume the fruit or the money, which is in a different place, are still there. However, v'im avdu, let's say it actually did get lost. So obviously now it's a problem. So now what does he do? So we say harizel chayshish me'esh l'eis. We're already concerned because he checked and he actually saw that the fruit's not there, the money's not there. So he already has to be chayshish me'esh l'eis, which is a 24-hour period of time, which we'll have to see Divi Rabbi Elazar 24 hours from when. So that the Gemara is going to discuss. Says Rashi, you have to be concerned now about this tevel, this fruit. Shetikein b'haftachatan shel elu. You had the haftacha, you had the belief that the fruits in a different place were there. V'im lo achlan, if you didn't eat them, now you have to separate from them. The shema kisha'amar hari trumasan beper shikisesi kvar haya avudin. The problem is, when you made that declaration, maybe those fruits are already gone. So therefore, that's why it's a problem, and that's why it all depends on me'es le'es. Now again, what does that mean? We'll see in the Gemara. Two opinions. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, b'shloisha prakim, in 3 different times, boitkin esayayin. We will examine wine, because we're talking about, you just were boidik. You went to check to see if the money was there, the fruit was there. So there's other 3 times in which we're boidik when it comes to wine. Says Rashi that sarcha boidko. You need to check the wine because shem hichmetz, because maybe the wine already turned into vinegar. Ve'in tarmin menachem al yain. Obviously, you cannot take truma from vinegar for wine, and therefore you have to check them. What are the 3 times where there's a likelihood that wine could become vinegary quickly? So first of all is Bekidum Shel Moitzi Hachag. When it comes to the Easter winds that blow after Sukkot, so because of that, Rashi says Shikashit Nashameshes Ruach Kadim Moitzi Hachag. Again, it's the eastern wind blowing. Second of all is Behoitzas Samadar, when the blossoms fall off. Says Rashi, Katom Perach Va'anavav, Nirin Be'eshgoil Kesidron. So during that time, where you could see the clusters of grapes because the blossoms have fallen off, that's also a time to be concerned. And then finally, Vishas Chenisas Mayim B'boitzer, in a time when the grapes are filled with liquid, when their grapes are filled with juice, that's another time. Says Rashi, Kishahin Kofel Halavan Nikroin Boitzer. So when it's like doubled over in size, that's when it's called Boitzer. Ukish Kaluchluchas, when it's liquid, Nechneses enters, ukdeilu b'tocho, and it grows inside, shiachol atzer mehen, kol shehu, that even the smallest amount you could squeeze out, hainu knisas mayim. That's what it's referring to when it says knisas mayim. Basically, again, it's talking about when you have a very, very thick, large grape, and because it has so much moisture, it has a greater chance of becoming vinegar, says the Gemara. So mayim me'es la'es. So you checked and you found out the money wasn't there, the mice, the fruit isn't there. So we're chayshish me'es la'es. What does that mean? So this is question 7. So it says be'ez zman mechsha me'es la'es. And also this is going to be question TA29 that says it's actually uba umatzim sha'avdu min matai choshesh sha'avdu. So me'es la'es. So what is me'es la'es? Rabbi Yochanan Omer me'es la'es shel bedika, from the time of the examination. So once you were baidik and you noticed that the fruits were not there, so we already have to assume 24 hours back that maybe they were also not there, which means if you made the stipulation a week ago, so then you don't have to worry about it. You could still eat those foods. However, if let's say you made the stipulation within a 24-hour span of time from the time that it was lost, so then it becomes problematic. Says Rashi, Utvei mehachi, last line, lo, achmor rabbanan l'meichosh el samchina chazaka. Anything which is beyond the 24 hours after the time that you did, or before the time you did the bedika, you no longer have to worry. And we assume that the decoration is still good, which again is a great kula. Rabbi Lezer ben Antigonus Oimer Mishum, he said in the name of Rabbi Lezer Rav Yana, as we continue to Lamed Aleph and Beis on that short Amud, Me'es la'es is shel hanacha. What does that mean? Says Rashi, Hari ze chayshesh l'mafreya, we're concerned all the way going back, kol hayomim, all the days, ad me'es la'es shel hanacha rishayna, all the way back from when you place the fruits or the money there. Yom echad shalei machzakinu hu b'chesas kayamin biyadua, umishom ad kan savik v'yachsav yitrom. So this is obviously a lot more strict from the time that you actually put the money there, the time that you put the fruits there. Tanan. So we learned in the Mishnah, it says, Im abdu harizeh chayshesh me'es la'es. Now that is a pretty interesting language. Now bishul mandi me'es la'es shel bedika, from the time you looked, so bedika, the bedika then shopper. That makes sense. When it says from the time that you placed it down originally, hi me'es la'es, why does it say me'es la'es? Ad me'es la'es miboile kasha. It should actually say until me'es la'es, not me'es la'es. Says Rashi, El mandiamer kuhu yomi koi b'chshasha. All the days are in doubt, bar min yoim kama, except for the first day, chayshesh l'mafreya, ad me'es la'es miboile. So therefore, the language isn't clear. Based on our Mishnah, actually it is clear that it seems to be b'shas bedika. Divi Rebbe Lezer, Amar Rebbe Lezer, Chalukin alav chaver bal Rebbe Lezer, he disagrees. Not mikvah shenimdan b'nimsa chaser. Let's say you have a mikvah which is 40 saw, which is the minimum amount, and then all of a sudden you measured it, and you realize there's only 39 saw, which means it's not large enough for the dinim of Tumah and Tahara. So din is kol Tahara shenasu al gaba mafreya. Anyone who went into that mikvah, any kalim that went into that mikvah, retroactively, ben b'shas yachid, ben b'shas harabim, timeyos. It doesn't make any difference. Not only rishas yachid, which we say sfeiko suffix is tameh, which we learn from sota, but even when it comes to rishas harabim, suffix rishus harabim, which we generally say is tahar, but over here there's not much of a suffix. It's clear that it's chaser, and therefore there's no longer a chazaka according to him. This Gemara just is talked about at great length in other places, but he holds that once we see there's a problem, we go all the way to Mafreya. So which we see actually a third opinion. The third opinion is that according to this, we say all the way L'mafreya, not Me'es La'es from Bedika, not Me'es La'es from the Hanacha. No, not at all. It's completely not good. So Pshita, the Chalukin It's obviously that he argues, as Rashi v'amri the oil chayshin, that we're always chayshish. It's pretty clear that would be the din, because that's what he says by mikvah. So what's the same thing? Madatema milo afrei me'es leis kamashmalon. Maybe it just means me'es. When it says l'mafreya, it means me'es leis, because based on so our Mishnah says harizeh chayshish me'es leis. However, if we saw the Rashi, which we just saw on the top, it says harizeh chayshish l'mafreya kol hayamim ad me'es leis shel hanacha. So you could throw in the word mafreya and me'es leis in the same sentence. So maybe that's what he's saying. He's maybe not chayla kamashmon. No, it's oil. Okay. Rabbi Huda begin with prakim b'chol. So he said there was 3 times you have to examine wine products to make sure that they didn't become vinegary. B'chol. Tana. So b'kindum shel maitzei chag shel tekufa. So as we mentioned, one of the times is when you have this eastern wind right after Sukkot. Very powerful winds. Tanya Behuda Aimer begin prakim maichones atvua. There's 3 times that a person sells grain. We'll see, like, why do we need to know this? This seems to be not so important. But here are the 3 times. Lifnei hazera, before the planting season, and Shas hazera, during the planting season, Ufrois haPesach, which usually means like halfway through Pesach. Okay. There's 3 times in which we sell wine. It makes sense during times of the Shlosh Regalim, where we need wine, especially for all the Yom Tovim. So therefore, that's a time in which you sell wine. And for oil from Shavuos and onward. Okay, so like, what's the difference when you sell it? We don't need to know this. So it's important when it comes to partners. Says Rashi, im kvar nichnas tekufas tishrei, if it already entered that time span. Aval im mashcha tekufas tamuz ad kan lo. Oh, I'm sorry, l'shutvin. Says Rashi, she'en ha'echad yachal limchor shul medas chavero. You're not allowed to sell something without your partner's consent. Chutz leprakim alolu, except for during these times, because it's the standard time that things are sold. If you're not to ask them, the machar, if you sold it, in the siakir hashar lachrizman, of klum. And let's say you didn't make a good business deal. Oh, the prices went up, and you could have sold it for a better price or whatever. So the guy could say, "Why did you do it? You shouldn't have sold it then." The din is it doesn't make any difference. The reality is that this is the normal time, and therefore you could sell something even without your partner's consent, because it's understood that that's usually what happens. So from then on, what? Amarava kol yoima pirke. Every day is its time. Who? The pasuk says in Yonah, after he went to Nineveh and he was sitting by the tree, the sun was shining, ruach kadim charishis. So Hashem caused this very strong wind. Chayrish sounds like the word like to plow. So my charishis, Rabbi Yehuda b'shah shemit nasheves, from the time that this wind is blowing, asa telomim bayom. It makes furrows in the sea because it's so powerful. You can see it like makes powerful waves, just like the waves that could be created, which is similar to harisha. You can see that there's furrows in the ground. That also gives you an imagination, an image of the powerful waters that are being pushed. Armoli Rabbi Hachif, that's what it means. But it also says over there in Yonah, Vatach Hashemesh al Rosh Yonah, that the sun reached to his head, Vias Alaf, and he was feeling faint, which means it was clearly a very hot wind. And this is not considered to be a very hot wind, especially it's coming after Sukkot, which is getting cooler out. It means like this: from the time that the wind blows, mashtekes kol haruchos mipaneha, it silences all the other winds from before it. So it doesn't. The word charisha Also comes the word cheresh. And interesting, the word plow is similar to deafening. So it's cheresh, it silence it. That's why it says in Iyov, Asher bigodecha chamim, the garments which were warm, behashkit eretz midarim. It silenced the earth from the south. So, says Rashi, Hainu dichsiv, which is actually bitmia. That's actually a question. But Tacha Shemesh, as that was before, because again we saw that clearly the winds were not. This couldn't be the meaning of the winds. So, and we said that again it's talking about this powerful winds that silence all the other winds, the eastern winds, etc. Okay. Omrav Tachlifa Barav Chista. Omrav Chista Emasa Bigodecha Chamim. So, interpreting this pasuk in Iyov, when do we say the warm garments? B'shah shehishkit eretz midarim. It's a time in which it silenced the earth from the south. Sheb'shah shemna sheves, from the time that the wind blows, mashtekes kol haruchas mepaneha. It causes all the other winds to be silenced. Rav Huna Rav Chista, which means it overwhelms the heat. The heat wave is what overpowers all the other winds, the cool winds. Rav Huna Rav Chista Haviyasni, they're sitting Chalvi Azul Geniva Elihu. So Geniva was passing by. Omer Chad Chavre, one said, Rav Huna said to Rav Chista, or vice versa, Nekem Kamei, let's stand in front of Geniva, Devar Aroyanhu, because he's someone who is a Devar Aroyan, he's a scholar. Amrulei idach mikmei palga nekum hadach idach mikamei palga nekum, and we should get up. So adahachi asi ihu gabai, who came there. Amalhu b'mayas askitu. What are you involved in? So palga, Rashi says, is bal mariva, the one who's involved in arguments. Shahaysalu mariva imar ukva shahayu av beistin. He actually got into a quarrel, Geniva did, with Mar Ukva, as it's brought down in the beginning of this Masechta. B'nei Adam ha'imdim olai, the people were standing against me. So Geniva, as we recall, was causing a tremendous amount of problems with the Av Beistin. So he was basically saying back to him, you want to stand up to him because he's a scholar. Well, what do you mean? Mikmei palga nekum? We should get up in front of someone who is an arguer. Why would we want to stand in front of him? So he said, what are you talking about? Sarmalei baruchos. We're talking about the dinam of winds. There are 4 different winds that blow every day. And the northern wind, generally, which Rashi says is noichehi, it's calm wind. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's basically takes care of and it dominates the other ones. If it wasn't for this northern wind, then the world would not endure. However, when it comes to the southern wind, it's the most powerful over all of them. Ben Nates. If it wasn't for Ben Nates, Rashi says it's a malach, a particular angel, mamida, that stands there, macharevis kolom kulo mipaneha. The southern winds could destroy the whole world. So the northern winds protect the whole world. The southern winds are trying to destroy the whole world. And then you have all these different factors going on. Shnemar, as it says, binascha, your understanding, yaver nates, the malach passes, yifrois kanafav l'seimon, and it spreads its wings again to protect us from these southern winds. Rav of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, which again is interesting. What does this have to do with Geniva? And is this an answer to what was going on? So perhaps what's being said over here is we should stand up for him. No, he's about plukta, and maybe he's causes problems. And what he was saying, ruchos, there's different winds that have different powers. And sometimes you have contradictory things that each one is necessary for one another. So maybe Geneva is alluding to the fact that, yeah, he is cholik with the Av Beis Din, even though he didn't know that that's what they're talking about. But nonetheless, some type of element of connection is to show that he was saying, listen, just like there's different winds and they all have different functions and purposes in this world, but even though you see one is destructive and one is helpful, it's not entirely destructive, it's needed. And therefore, also when it comes to different people, even though you could see that they're destructive, maybe we should not be so quick to see the lack of value. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Haviyasve, they were sitting. Havichalvi Ozu Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov. So he was passing by. The Yosef Biguharka de Dahava, and he was actually sitting in a golden chariot. Ufarasale Sarbola de Carte, and it was spread over him this special cloak. Rabbi Ozol Gabe, so Rabbi went to him. Nachman Yitzchak lo Ozol Gabe. However, Nachman Yitzchak didn't. Omer Dilma Meinshi Debe Reish Galusinenhu. He said maybe this person is connected to the Reish Galusa. Rashi says karti, as we know, is like leek. It's a tseva, it's a dye of tchelos daimel karti. It looks like leek. So he said, well, maybe again he's connected to this great the Reish Galusa. Rava Tzarchahu. So Rava, who, as we said, got up. He needed him. No, I don't need him. I don't need the Reish Galusa. Kidachazid Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov, when he saw them, the Haviyosel Gabe, who was coming to them, Galway Lidare, he revealed his arm. Omar, he said, they said, Shadya Noshiv, that this carriage has been blown. Omar Rav Hachi Omar Rav Ishim Apelas Boy. It means that a woman just must have had a miscarriage. Shmuel Emer Gafil Margolish Shabayam Markeves Boy. That because of this powerful wind, even the jewels and pearls in the sea can decay because of these powerful winds. That even the shechva zera that's in a woman's womb could decay. So these are all the things that were said. Now Rashi says Rav Nachman chasne de nasihav. The reason Rav Nachman didn't need this guy, they saw Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov because he was the chasne of the Nasius, so they thought that maybe he was connected to the Reish Galusa. Fine. So they saw again this powerful wind, and they knew that probably all these terrible things could potentially have happened to all these people. So again, from the intense heat of the eastern wind, it shows how it's destructive potentially it could be. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Ushloshan Mikra Darshu. They all learn from the same pasuk. It says in Hosea, Kihu bein achim yafriya yavo kadim ruach Hashem midbar oila v'yevosh mikoydoi v'gomer. So what does this mean? So we darshan this whole pasuk. Yav yevosh mikoyro zu mikoyro shel isha. That's referring to the womb of a woman. Vayichrav mi and yanai, that it will be destroyed its foundation. Zeshich v'zer shebemei isha. This is referring to the shech v'zera, which is found inside the womb of a woman. Hu yish se oitzer kol kli chemda zu margol shebiyam. Even the jewels in the sea, those pearls will be destroyed by this powerful wind. Omarava adet soira hu dedaige karoi mai. So those people who darshan psukim, how do we understand this? The Bnei Surah. Kihu bein achim yafri. So Marava feel, what does that mean? Because we're darshan the pasuk. So what does that part mean? I feel as we continue to Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, I feel shufta bikofina. Even the Beis Yad, the handle of this particular hoe, the kofina damara rafia, can get weakened. In other words, this powerful wind can even soften that. Of Yosef bar Oimer afilu sichta bedafna rafia, even a peg that's in a wall, says Rashi, Yotseid Shibedoifin Rafia, Shemis Yavesh Machmas Achoim Barafa. It'll get dried up because of the heat and weaken. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Omer feel Kanye Bekufta Rafia, that even a reed, Rashi says a kana, a reed, which is in a kufya, in a basket, in a kufta rafia, can also weaken and get softened because of these powerful winds. Hanulach kol haget, hanulach kol haget, hanulach kol haget. We concluded the second parak. We'll continue the third parak. Shalech get leishdai vegia b'shliach or shliach achar b'shliach. Tomorrow's daf. Adkan.